Did you know that if you lined up everyone on the African continent side by side, we would reach the moon and back? And with a spaceship, it takes about 3 days to get to the moon. Anyways, here is the population of Africa. Like, subscribe, and share please to help us. Thanks and enjoy. So let's start with the macro information of the continent before diving into the individual countries. 17.6% of the world's population is in Africa. In terms of continental regions, Eastern Africa is the most populated region of Africa, with 5.8% of the global population. However, Southern Africa is the least populated area at 0.9% of the global population. In 1950, there were 228 million Africans on the continent, and today we sit at 1.4 billion people. That means in 74 years, the population has boomed over 7 times. Nigeria is currently the 6th most populated country on earth. However, Cairo is the most populated city on the continent, including the metro area. Rwanda and Burundi are one of the most densely populated countries in the world, and as of the end of February, Africa is the youngest continent in terms of the median age, which is about 18.8 years of age. So when it comes to the continent itself, the growth in population is credited to the decreased infant mortality and the increase of life expectancy. And even though the world is worried of the growth in relation to the overwhelming poor infrastructure, the world ignores the diaspora and the growth in literacy level, which will contribute greatly to the future of the continent if all effective steps are taken. The top 5 most populated countries on the continent in order of size are Nigeria, Ethiopia, Egypt, the DRC, and Tanzania. The difference from Nigeria and Tanzania sits at over 150 million people. Looking at the 5 least populated countries, one will see that except for Western Sahara, they're all islands, with Seychelles being the least with 107,000 people, contributing 0.01% to the continental population. The Sahara Desert has one of the lowest population densities on the planet, and that comes as no surprise since it's one of the hottest and driest places on Earth. The heavily populated areas are on the Mediterranean, the Nile, Nigerian coast, the Eastern Rift, coastal Southern Africa, and Middle Africa. Madagascar is the most populated island with 30+ million people, and South Sudan has the highest annual growth rate. The largest ethnic group in Africa is the Hausa, sitting at over 74 million in population, and only 10 million of them live outside Nigeria, while the least populated ethnic group is the Himba, located in northern Namibia. There are about 50,000 of them. When it comes to gender, women on the continent are expected to live 5 more years than men, and there are more countries with a higher population of women than men, but on the continent as a whole there are about 40,000 more men than women. In terms of religion, there are more Christians on the continent than Muslims, and the smallest religion is Judaism. Looking into the future, by 2025, 1 in 3 children will be born in Africa. That's a few months from now. By 2050, the population of Africa is projected to be at 2.4 billion people. By 2060, the African middle class is expected to reach 1.1 billion people. Those are people on the continent. However, there's a huge diaspora outside of the continent. This has been through slavery in the past and postmodern colonial migration. Today, there are about 20 million Africans living outside the continent, with the majority living in Europe. But if we talk about individuals of African descent that live outside of Africa, it is a much more bigger number. But determining if they are part of the African population is subjective. For example, there are about 47 million African Americans, over 100 million Afro-Latinos, about 23 million Afro-Caribbeans, and about 9 million Afro-Europeans. Then you have the Afro-Asians who are below 300,000 in number. During the Atlantic slave trade, over 12 million people were taken from the continent, while about 4 to 10 million African slaves were traded during the Arab slave trade. As a finale, we took the liberty to estimate what the population of Africans throughout history has been, through the slave trades, migration, genocide, wars, stillborns, and those who went missing. Our estimate would sit at probably about, drumroll please, 2.5 billion Africans that have existed through time. But anyways, that's just an estimate. If you want to challenge us on the number, please comment in the sections below. Would love to see what you think. Thanks for watching. Will we see you in the next one?